living on the front line. Oh, mama, you're gonna born me in the wrong time. Oh, you've got me, mama, you're gonna born me on the front line. They got me living on top of my existence. Oh, appreciate my resistance.
Okay, we are now back with you on the ACDA Hour. Today, Sunday, the 16th of February. We're in African History Month. Now, we all know that African history is world history. Some of us will recognize that as a fact. So, what we are doing today, we will be discussing world civilization and history. I'm saying today we are discussing African history because it's African History Month. And with me in studio today is Sister Joelle Perry, who will give you a brief rundown of what African history is all about. For we all accept today that world history is very much considered a part of African history. For humanity began in Africa. So all human beings, their history is tied to Africa, right? I know some of you have been indoctrinated by the Hollywood style information that Africans are basically children of lesser gods. But the others would not have been here if they did not come out of Africa today. With that, I introduce Sister Perry. Please open your video so that we can see you, and they can see who's speaking to them. Maybe we can just have an introduction from yourself and why we considered you the person to discuss African history today. Now, Sister Perry, before I bring her on, she is a member of the Association of Young Africans, that's AYA, the youth arm of African Cultural and Development Association, ACDA. And because of the need for succession, we want our young people to take the front center stage in everything we do in ACDA. So, Sister Perry, please say good evening, afternoon to our viewers, and let's start our discussion. Sister Perry.
Jambo, I am Joelle Perry. I'm one of the youth leaders at the Association of Young Africans, which Brother said is the youth arm of ACDA. So at the Saturday program every week, we have a program where we have young children and we teach them about culture, African culture, and we do African dances and drummings, etc. So this week, well, today, I'm here to speak to you about African History Month and mainly what our exhibition is about. So this year we had, or every year rather, we have an exhibition at ACDA, which is on Thomas Land, where we display some facts about Africa. And this year our theme was Ancient Royal Kingdoms in Africa. So that's what I'll be speaking about today. So there is a brief intro on who I am.
Okay, Sister Perry. Now that you have told our audience who you are, and as I said before, African history is world history, or world history is African history, because without the African, there would have not been no other civilizations in this world. Though some history books, some will like to tell us it differently, that Africans came after the others. And as I mentioned earlier, some will consider us children of lesser gods, but we are not. We are the real deal, as we all know. So now, where do you want to start your discourse, this discourse?
Right, so we can start at what African History Month is basically about. It's really a time when we spend recognizing the contributions of Africans to the society. I mean, think about a world without the contributions of Africans, like from simple things like your shoes to the traffic light to just culture itself. There's just a lot that we have done that we don't get enough recognition for. And we want to spend this time just recognizing the people who have made just simple everyday things possible.
Okay. So we are talking about things that has basically bring civilization, things that make us civil beings, things that are there to protect us, like you said, you mentioned this traffic light. It brings order in the traffic environment. Wearing of our shoes protects our feet from the elements because you stomp your feet on a you stomp your foot on a stone or something, it can be damaged. Or you tread on some piece of sharp uh, material, again, you can expose yourself to damage. So the simple things, as you call them, that makes life bearable and make it interesting. So, uh, so then, sister, how do we position the African vis-a-vis others in terms of, let's say, the sciences or the arts in terms of that civilizing process?
So, how do we incorporate this into society? Simple, by just letting it be known. You know, for example, in schools, we're just taught about the slavery aspect of African history. Let's go further. Let's dive into what it was like before slavery. Let's also look at what how far we've come from slavery, the things that we've done, that the things that we continue to do, and just the things that are just significant to us. We don't just want to know that, oh, we struggled, but how we overcame the struggle and things that we've been doing before we struggled as well. So in the sciences, like African people are the ones who came up with mathematical theories, engineering, archaeological stuff, by building pyramids, doing surgeries, looking into astronomy. So it's just a number of things that we can place more emphasis on as opposed to just talking about slavery era. So another sister was supposed to be here to speak on this. The thing I'll be speaking on mainly is civilizations, but I just briefly wanted to touch on that as well.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much that you're filling the gap in for the system. So, uh, civilization. You said our exhibition is basically about the achievement, former kingdoms, civilizations. Um, so, get into it and let us learn.
All right. So there's just a number of civilizations and ancient kingdoms that we do not know about. I know going through this research for this year's exhibition, I definitely learned a lot. And not just about the ancient kingdoms, but they're actually current kingdoms still happening or still running efficiently in society around the world. So there's the kingdom of Axum, Kush, Congo, the kingdom of Mutapa or the Great Zimbabwe. There's the Mali Empire, the King of Ghana, the Baganda Kingdom, the Benin Kingdom. There's the Nook civilization. There's Ethiopia. There's the Shanghai Empire, just to name a few. Now, just for this presentation, I'll be focusing on the kingdoms of Axum, Ghana, Kush, Congo, Mutapa, Benin, and Mali. Before I get into that, I was reading this piece by John Henry Clark, and it says, history is a clock that people use to tell their political time of day. It is also a compass that people use to find themselves on the map of human geography. History tells the people where they have been and what they have been. It also tells the people where they are and what they are. Most importantly, history tells the people where they still must go and what they still must be. So it's unfortunate that our history was written by foreigners, or, as they call them, the conquerors of our civilization, in a way that reflects their supremacy. But slavery did not completely sever the connection between the continental Africans and the diasporan Africans. And as such, we are now charged with the responsibility to learn our heritage and know ourselves. So we can begin that just by learning a bit about civilizations that existed before what we know as the Western world. So the Aksum Empire, that was located in present-day Ethiopia and is one of the kingdoms, the African kingdoms that dominated Arabia. So the Aksum Empire was a wealthy empire that arose in the 1st century and it thrived for centuries after, controlling territorial states and access to vast trade routes, linking the Roman Empire to the Middle East and India. This empire is also known for its elaborate monuments and written scripts, as well as for the introduction of Christianity to sub-Saharan Africa. Though the origin of this kingdom is mysterious, the region and valley below were inhabited since the Stone Age, and the agrarian communities had been there for at least a millennium. The kingdom reached its peak between the 3rd and 6th centuries CE, which is Common Era, and it was prosperous and a stratified society with divisions ranging from high nobles to lower status members of elite classes and common folks. The kingdom also exercised administrative and economic control over a swath of territories encompassing Tigray and northern Eritrea, the desert coastal plains to the south and east, and much of the Red Sea coast in present day, that's Djibouti and Somalia. So trade in Aksum was facilitated by the minting of its currency, which included gold, silver, and bronze coins adorned with the effigy of the king, or like the face of the king on the coin. And that's like a testament to the power and the wealth of the kingdom. So now I'll move on to Congo. So the kingdom of Congo flourished during the 14th century. It is recorded as one of the most like powerful kingdoms in Africa and one of West Africa's key centers for commercial development. The kingdom was founded by the ancient clan known as the Bakongo. And the people, although they had their own names, preferred to call themselves Congolese because they lived near the Congo River, so as to preserve their past along the river where it existed before their presence. Geographically, the kingdom was about 130,000 square kilometers in area, which was divided into 6 sections. So each section was ruled by a representative of the king. It had over a population of over 2 million, and it reached its peak thanks to their trade in copper, ivory, salt, cattle, and slaves. The trading of slaves was especially lucrative and well regulated. The kingdom also produced goods, with groups specializing in crafts, such as weavers, if you know the famous raffia fabrics from Congo, potters, and metal workers. Trade was also conducted using the nzimbu, which is a shell, as their currency. Any citizen of the Congo could become the king. The king had a council of 12 advisors who had the authority to overthrow him if they felt like he was unable to lead or due to misconduct. So Congo kings were distinguished by their symbol of office, which would be like a headdress or the royal stool or their regalia, their jewelries, etc. So the kingdom, or rather the citizens of this kingdom, engaged in breeding, hunting, and agriculture. And they also learned trades and enrolled in prestigious schools, with the Bulo, Kinkimba, Lemba, and Kimpansi being some of the schools. And the Kingdom of Congo was the first kingdom in sub-Saharan Africa to establish ties with Europe, Portugal in particular. And Diego Chao was the first European explorer to enter the kingdom, which was in 1463, where he met with King Nzukulu and shared information on war, trade, and Christianity. This relationship was mutually beneficial until plantations were founded in America and the Portuguese started taking slaves to America from the Congo. And it's recorded that in 1520, about 1,000 slaves were taken there. The king had written to the king of that area then, but it is recorded that his letter was ignored. Now we'll move on to the Mali Empire. Now, when you think of Mali, we think of Mansa Musa, who is like the richest man in the world. Whenever you Google who the richest man in the world is, that's the first person who would come up. So Mali was a prominent and influential West African empire, and it flourished during the 13th to the 16th century. It was established by the Sundiata Keita after his victory over Soso Kingdom that was led by Sumaguru Kanti. The empire was renowned for its wealth, culture, and influence on trade, particularly in gold and salt. This empire is notable for its contributions to education and architecture. Now, the empire reached its peak during the reign of Mansa Musa I between 1312 and 1337, who doubled the size of the empire and made significant contributions to architecture and education. Timbuktu emerged as a major center for learning, and it attracted scholars from across the Muslim world. And the city became famous for its libraries and universities that preserve ancient texts. So the Mali Empire controlled various trade routes across the Sahara Desert, facilitating commerce in gold, copper, salt, ivory, and slaves. And economic power contributed to its wealth and cultural exchange with other civilizations. I move on to Benin. So Benin was one of the most powerful and wealthy early medieval African empires located in present-day southern Nigeria. So the capital was Edo, now Edo State, known as Benin City. The empire was established by the Edo people, who were first ruled by the Ogisi, or the Ogiso dynasty, and were the Igodo nation. So their name was after Igodo, founder of Ogisu, meaning ruler of the sky. The kings of this kingdom were referred to as the Oba, and Oba Iwari made Benin an empire and made a beautiful palace covered in shimmering brass that was continuously expanded after him by the following Obas. So Benin made a contract with the Europeans in the 1480s, and the Europeans were amazed by what they saw and referred to the kingdom as the great city of Benin, which is what would come up when you Google it, because it was noting how richly decorated the king's palace was and how industrious and wealthy the city itself was. There were political elites who consisted of chiefs, the Uzama, and the royal family. There's a feedback. Palace chiefs oversaw the palace administrative work, and other chiefs with duties of hunting to astronomy. They traded around the world, selling rubber and palm oil to Portugal and the Netherlands in particular. In the 1600s, when the Dutch visited, the king bought out his pet leopards. So naturally, they were tamed to meet, and they would also roam the cities. And that was a shocking fact to me, because I never thought that leopards would be tame. Moving on. So Benin had a large, well-trained and disciplined army. And the Great Wall of Benin is considered one of the great wonders of the world. The Guinness Book of World Record describes Benin's moat as the largest earthwork in the prior to mechanical inventions era, and it is considered the largest man-made invention, second to the Great Wall of China. The Edo people are the best bronze casters in the world, so naturally, a distinct feature of the Benin Kingdom would be the Benin bronze. These metal plaques tell a full story and a varied history of West African people and preserve their African history for posterity. Many bronze were commissioned to honor the Obas and Iobas, which is queen mothers. The Kingdom of Benin was the first sovereign nation to ban the Atlantic slave exports. Now we move on to Ghana. Now, Ghana is known as the land of gold, and Ghanaians invented a way to mine gold and control 3 major gold fields. The kingdoms became wealthy by trading throughout Africa. These kings controlled the gold that was unearthed and were called the Lords of Gold. Arab countries wrote about expensive gifts given by these kings to their neighbors and trade partners, just to show the extent of how much gold they really dealt with. Ghanaians traded gold for salt from the Saharan desert region, and other goods they traded copper, ivory, textiles, leather, herbs, spices, and foods like fish, rice, honey, coconut, etc. And they used horses and camels to facilitate the growth of this trade. Ghana had a large army and used iron to make weapons. The kingdom began to weaken in the 11th centuries, and archaeologists are still learning from a site they uncovered called the Kumbu Sale, which may have been the capital of Ghana and home to over 40,000 people. The remains of the Kumbu Sale prove the kingdom of Ghana was one of the most complex and powerful civilizations of its time. The kingdom of Kush. So the kingdom of Kush is one of the most fascinating kingdoms where we get to see female empowerment come to play. This kingdom is probably the most famous civilizations to emerge from Nubia. 3 Kushite kingdoms dominated Nubia for over 3,000 years, with capitals in Karma, Napata, and Meroe. Karma being the most powerful Nubian city-state between 2450 BC and 1450 BC. It was located in Northeast Africa, just south of ancient Egypt. The main cities were situated along the Nile River. There's the White Nile and the Blue Nile. Its contribution to military strategy, economics, mathematics, engineering, politics, and history stands out even till present day. This kingdom existed in the Nile Valley from around 1000 BC to 350 AD. It consisted of two phases. The Naptian phase, where Egyptians influence dominated like the symbolic expression of royal power. And the second phase, which was 300 BC to 350 AD, named after capital Meroe. This was characterized by the indigenous African and mixed traditions. During this period, African products such as ebony, elephant, gold, iron, ivory, and ostrich feathers were traded. Meroe itself was a marvel with large buildings and temples across the cityscape that attracted visitors from all over the ancient world. Even the poorest citizen of this kingdom was better off than like anyone else across the globe. So the temple Amun, which was reported to be the jewel of the city, the Meroitic rulers constructed pyramids, even though they were smaller and much narrower than the ones that we know of in Egypt. In Kush, women held significant powers in politics, trade, and religion. There is a known line of queens called the Candaces, who were not subjected to male domination. An example of a Candace would be the Shana Daki. You have to go research that. Another example is Queen Amenarenas, who ruled for around 20 BC to 10 BC. She led a successful military campaign against the Roman Empire from the 27th to the 22nd BC and was able to negotiate a favorable peace treaty with the Roman Emperor Augustus Caesar. So this queen was known for her bravery and strategic leadership, and her reign marked a period of significant power and influence for the Kingdom of Kush. Mutapa, or the Great Zimbabwe Empire. This was a vast empire which covered both Zimbabwe and central Mozambique and other parts of neighboring countries. The Mutapa Empire was led by Muwe Mutapa, which means Lord of the Realm or Owner of the Mines. And it existed about 900 CE to 1902 CE, which is before Common Era. And it was about 1,002 years old. The Mutapa Empire was an expansion of another Shona or Karanga civilization, which dates back a century or so from 1000 CE. Now, the Great Zimbabwe is actually the largest of many Zimbabwes or stone cities. It was built without mortar in southern Africa. The king instructed that like every visitor that came was to bring 3 stones, which was used to build the walls of Zimbabwe. The empire was home to a diverse like ethnic group which contributed to its rich tapestry of traditions and customs. And the artistry of the Mutapa people is very evident in their intricate sculptures, pottery, jewelry, and often adorned with symbols and motifs unique to the empire. Trade was one of the main contributors to this empire's success. With their abundant gold reserve, the trade route connected Africa, Asia, and Europe via the Indian Ocean. And not only was this the only trade they did, but it was facilitated by it enabled for like cultural exchange of ideas, and it also allowed them to acquire like exotic items like Chinese porcelain and Persian textiles and Arabian spices. So one of the main highlights from this kingdom is its no slave practice. According to the tradition of the Shona people, slavery was forbidden. They believed that everyone must be compensated for their work or their labor. The relatives of these Shona or Karanga people, such as the Sena and the Venda, used the autonomous African adoption system, which was in accordance with the UNHU, or similar to Ubuntu, which is like cooperation, integrated refugees into their society. And even when the Portuguese wanted to hunt and capture slaves, they would not like just hand them over to them. A spiritual aspect of this kingdom. So the Shona or the Karanga people believed in one supreme being, namely the Mawari. And according to them, Mutapos is where the first man was created by Wari. And they believe that when they die, they go to the ancestral spirit world. and they refer to them as the Mazimu, and they call upon them in their time of need. So the legacy of this great nation is like a testament to their cultural vibrance, their leadership, and their resilience. So I hope this presentation was a little insightful. And yeah, I'll close the video for now.
No, you've done very, very well, I must admit, my sister. Oh, 1 minute. My, my. Yes, I was saying you've done very well. And I think that what you have said would be food for thought for many. For instance, you mentioned about the gold mining that took place in Ghana. I am seeing there a connection between our early poke knockers venturing into the interior, and that because many of the people, African people who are here in Ghana, originated from Ghana. So I can see why so many of them went into the gold fields immediately after emancipation. Would you ascribe that as the reason why our people went into the interior and were able to become successful gold miners? Or do you think it's just that they were told to do that? They were taught it locally in Ghana.
No, because research would show you that the people that came after us, we were actually the ones teaching them our skills. So the fact that we were able to go into the interior and find and mine gold, I think that is actually a tribute to what we knew when we came here. So once we were able to do it on our own free will, we were able to go there and make a living for ourselves because of the skills that we already had. Now, we do know that a lot of people came from Ghana, so I think that that definitely attributes to a fact that we did that based on our own knowledge. It's not something that we would have been taught, because I don't think the people who brought us here had that knowledge themselves.
Okay, so that should be encouragement for our younger folks to understand why their foreparents, grandfathers, and great grandfathers went into the gold bush and made some money. And it should give them encouragement to want to do it on their own instead of going to work with a boss man. Because many of our young people feel today that you must have a boss man. No. And I think it's because of the issue that we were taught that, look, we are children of lesser God, so we need to be directed and encouraged and protected by others. It's liberating I think it's a liberating fact if they can understand that our people on their own volition did mining. And you mentioned this brother, Mansa Musa. Even today, by today's standards, he's still considered the richest man that ever walked the face of the earth. Today, we are hearing of all these, the Elon Musk and Bill Gates, and there is no black man in that rating. Why is it so? Can you, would your research have been able to identify any reasons why this would have been so, or leave that for further research?
Well, it might still be up to further research, but I can tell from just personal knowledge that it's not that we don't have people in those areas that exemplify what it means to be wealthy, but these information are not as accessible as the ones that are available. Now, just to like go back to what you said about young people thinking that they have to have a boss. We know that we know Carter G. Woodson, who is the father of African History Month, and he has a saying that if you can control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. When you determine what a man shall think, you do not have to concern yourself about what he will do. If you make a man feel like he is inferior, you do not have to compel him to accept an inferior status, for he will seek it out himself. And I think that's what, our children, they're growing up in schools and they're learning. And that's why we have as you know, woke African people have to play a role in ensuring that our children from at home know that they're not inferior and they're just as, you know, able to accomplish great things because we've done it before, which means we have the ability to continue doing it.
In fact, it's part of the human DNA to strive for excellence. And
Exactly.
the African is no different from other human beings in that quest. You know. Now, Sister Joel, one area you talked about the civilizations and their greatness, their construction, their quest for riches, but we have not really dwelled, you did not touch on food. How did they agriculture? How did they produce? What did they thrive? Were they dependent on food from other sources, or did these people produce their own foods?
So naturally, we produced our own foods. Um, we engaged in hunting, breathing, and just agriculture as we know it. So I don't think we depended on food from other sources. If anything, other people would have depended on stuff from us. So even as I mentioned earlier in one of the nations, like agriculture was one of the main like trades in the kingdom. Like it was something that was very much normal and known to all of the citizens in there up to this day. Like if you go and you visit traditional villages, like you would see them with their gardens and so forth, like where they get their own produce from. And they're actually healthy. I can tell you when we were in Kenya, I was surprised at the quality of the food there, you know, seeing them bring it straight from their farms and cook it. It's such a difference in the quality of the food. And I don't think that, you know, this is just something that you can just say, oh, I'm gonna have that. Like it is something that has to have been known how to do from the inception.
You know, I read some time back that the cultivation of sugarcane, though sugarcane is a crop native to India, I think, was very expansive in African countries, and it was why cotton, and so it is why our people were able to adapt and improve the production of sugar when they came to this part of the world, because our people had, as some people say, a knack for agronomy, agriculture. So we were not just brawn, we were the brain in some instances. In fact, if you look at sugar technology, there's been many innovations that the enslaved people have brought to sugar production, because the Spaniards, the English, the French, they had no link with the production of sugar prior to coming to the Caribbean. Did your research touch on any of that knowledge?
Not sugarcane in particular, but we did come across research saying that Africa is the birthplace of crops like millet, yams, and coffee. It also spoke about soil management. It spoke about how in Ethiopia and other regions, African practice terracing and soil conservation to maintain agricultural productivity. So I would have to go again and say that it's definitely something that we started and had great skills in the area and was able to do and continue doing until now. And as you said, we had a knack for it. So the fact that we were able to do it back then means that we should still be able to do it now. And with the technology and technological advancements available, we should continue to better it and improve it.
It is why I raise this is because there's this narrative that Africans are not farmers in Guyana. At least we can't be, we don't well, in reality, we are not the dominant group in farming, but the notion is peddled that Africans can do agriculture, you know. And as you said, we have done it before, so why can't we continue doing it? In the village movement, we saw our foreparents on establishing the communities, agriculture was a big portion of it, big part in it, until the lands were flooded and the other things that mitigated against the existence of our communities were instituted. But I think our young people need to really rethink. Well, not they should rethink. Effort should be made to instill in our young people that appreciation for agriculture and let them understand that it is something that is a part of them, and you cannot survive without feeding yourself. As a former leader would say, you need to feed yourself. Maybe you add other things, clothe and house yourself, but feeding yourself is essential. Any other things you'd like to, which you may not have mentioned in your presentation that you now thinking of that you want to mention? Because I mean, we've been here for some time and we will need to let our audience go at some point.
Sure. I mean, there's just a lot, and I don't think like any hour would be enough to unpack.
Oh, well, we can always come back. And as you said,
Yeah.
your sister member should have been here with you.
Yeah.
So maybe another 2 weeks from now, we can get back together and continue the program.
Yeah, but I'd just like to like conclude by saying that if you visit the exhibition, there's just so much more to see, so much more on the kingdoms. You know, there's pictures, and not just on the civilizations, but African names, African foods, African inventions, just so much more that you probably didn't even know existed. So, and the UN just named like a second decade for the people of African descent. So just like add your voice to the call of for reparation. I mean, we've done the work, and it's time that we be paid for the labor. So just know yourselves, know your history, and continue to share it. We're now charged with this responsibility of ensuring that we're not left behind. So learning history, it's beneficial to you.
Thank you very much, sister, and thank you for listening. Those who are here with us, and goodbye. Kwaheri.
Kwaheri.
I will once again go back to our brother Eddie Grant and let him take us out in this from this today's program. Right? So with that, okay then, goodbye everyone, and until we meet again.